Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. I pulled Tim out at the weirdest time, and Tim, I'm sorry, because right now we're watching one Devil Brevis effectively cement his place in all three formats of South African cricket of the Proteas going forward. He's bludgeoning everybody. But we're going to talk about the CSA T20 in a podcast later this week. The semifinals are starting, but cricket happens all day around us right now. So whenever we record, there's always some cricket on. And right now, Diego Brevis is on. On my count, Tim is 160 or 54. I don't know if you have another one.
No, that is correct. And he's just been caught for no ball. So he gets a free hit now as well. Just to add to the spice for the nights.
Gerald Kutsia, oh my lord. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, like I say, there's cricket all around, everything's happening. And today, Tim, we are talking the game of the tournament. The game people didn't think was going to be the game of the tournament. Everyone thought it was going to be Pakistan, India, which is good in itself. Everyone thought it was going to be in England, Australia, England, or even New Zealand, Australia at the beginning of the tournament. But it wasn't. This was a match between the two best teams in this tournament, the two best bowling attacks in this tournament, on the bounciest pitch in the world. So it was about to give us fireworks. And Tim, how are you feeling about that? Because South Africa came out on the other side of this. So we're not going to keep you in suspense. We know South Africa won. But how are you feeling after that?
Hugely patriotic, hugely proud. It was one of those games where you thought they're going to mess it up, aren't they? They've done so well. They've been the better team for much of the game. They've been in control. And you know what? They're actually going to not do it. They're going to end up short. They're going to end up 10 runs short, 15 runs short, because of the losses of the wickets at the start of their innings. But I genuinely think all boxes were ticked yesterday. Every single box that you wanted to be ticked, outside of the captain, but everything else was ticked. Everybody else contributed. It was a team performance. The bowling was absolutely superb. It was aggressive. It was intent. It was in-your-face bowling. It was accurate. It put pressure on India. And India at no time were really in control of their innings. In no time, even though Surya batted extremely well. And the batters didn't panic. Despite the fact that we lost those...
We'll go there.
But we will get there.
Just your initial thoughts.
Yeah, my initial thoughts are fantastic. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, look. I've said this on this podcast before. It's championship or bust for me with this team. Even with Timber, it is. But like yesterday, I sat there and as I watched them, I kind of felt that no, we've got our ducks and we've got it, all bases covered. And somehow we're in a land where it suits. It's like we're playing at home. Kagiso in the interview afterwards was like Lingy was bowling at Centurion, and I was like, actually, that's what it was. It was Centurion lengths. But we want to go into that. Remember, you can follow us on the various One World Sports Radio channels, or on the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that. But all the various social media platforms. So now, Tim, that Perth track, bounciest track in the world. What are you thinking as a selector before the toss happens? Because in my head, I'm like, Lungi comes back, Shamsi out largely because it's India. But then I'm like, bouncy track. There was a point in that first innings, in those first 6 overs, when I was like, did we miss a trick? Not bringing Marco Jansen in here?
After the match, you'd have to say, probably not. But you definitely could have made an argument for it, because the spinners, although they didn't get a wicket, it was 5 overs, 9 for 33. That's 8 and over. Thanks very much. If you're a spinning department, you will take that pretty much every day of the week. And I thought Marco's Marco. Markham's over was very, very crucial. It didn't put the extra pressure on Maharaj to come back for a fourth over, which
That was
might
good
have gone.
captaincy.
Yeah, it
That was
might
good
have.
captaincy.
So that was crucial. But in a general sense, you definitely could make an argument for playing Marco on that pitch.
The one thing I don't want South Africa to go forward doing is that they want to take away that spinner. Because obviously yesterday the spinner struggled, the part-timer struggled too. Hardik Pandya struggled. The only part-timer who didn't struggle was Aiden, because he only bowled one over for 5 runs, and it was a bit of a surprise over. It was like, oh snap, okay, 2 overs of spin. 2 Surya Kumar Yadav, which was like the shock of my I was in there going, Temba, you are a very brave man right now. Truly, truly brave bowling this guy at this point in the tournament. But it paid off. It paid off for him. But I don't want South Africa to now think that they can go all pace. I really don't. I don't think they should. I do think there is a world for a spinner. It's just when you use them. And India kind of found themselves in a bit of a hole when we were batting, when they pushed Ashwin's overs too late. That final over too late. And I was sitting in that first innings when Lungi bowled sensationally. Anrich bowled really well. Kagiso didn't get the wickets he won, but he had the best economy rate of everybody, right? And the thing was, for me, I kind of was like, okay, cool. Our quicks are doing well. You got also after the power play, I was like, is it time to give Keshav a chance? But we're on, and Timber always gets that right. Timber always gets that period after the power play right, and this time he did. He bowled Ulungi and Anna for one more over, and kind of worked because we got wickets, and wickets kept on falling regularly. But then the question kept on coming: when is Keshav going to come in? We went to over 10. Keshav hasn't bowled. We need to get 4 overs of spin in, or of bowler 5 and 6 in somewhere. And now if you're bowling Kesh for 4 overs, you're going to get to over 18. He's going to be bowling in 18 because you bowl the alternate overs, which is why I thought that Aiden Markham thing was a masterstroke, because you literally effectively cut the overs of spin to over 16. So he bought himself 2 overs. Instead of one quick, one spinner, one quick, one spinner, one quick, one spinner until the end. And I thought, I was like, dude, this is next level thing. I even think of Aiden. I was like, we don't have another spinner. We just have to just roll with Kesh and see where it lies. 150 is okay, because I thought 150 was fine. So I was like, no, that 130. How much more damage can another over of Kesh be? Well, Kesh went for 9 and over. But that 5 and over from Markram was, for me, what swung the game in South Africa's favor. Because, and I'm going to go to you on the batting, because in the batting, I felt that Hardik I always felt that we had a chance. We were behind the 8 ball most of the time with the batting, but I always felt we had a chance because Ashwin still had to bowl 2 overs when we were at over 15, and also Hardik Pandya still had to bowl 1 more. So no matter how well those guys were bowling up front, I was like, wait, hold up. It's the maths is mathing here. And that's where I was on that bouncy pitch. But I'm saying to you, Tim, going forward in the World Cup, will we get pitches like that? Not as bouncy, I get, because that's the bounciest. But like Adelaide and we saw Sydney, it rained. Well, no, Hobart rained. Sydney was okay. It was Bangladesh. We did bounce them out as well with that extra bounce. Will we get more of this going forward? Because I think we played Pakistan and Netherlands and probably the semi-finals in Melbourne as well. Are the pitches like this going forward?
I think that this was the bounciest track in Australia at the moment. I don't anticipate to see something quite in this fashion in terms of favouring the pace bowlers. Saying that, it is good South Africa can have that option where they can go, you know what, we're playing, let's just play devil's advocate, we play Pakistan in the semi-finals. Pakistan don't like the extra pace, so playing devil's advocate, you could go and say, right, well, we'll bounce them out, we'll trust it, and we'll bounce them out. But I do think Mark is going to want to play one spinner throughout. I think if you ask him, he's
But
going to go one
could you
spinner.
not get away with Aiden as the one spinner? So you have a 5-pace barrage, and you know that if I need a spinner, Aiden's my guy.
You could, but that's a risk. A risk for the main reason that he hasn't bowled an awful lot this year. He's been going
Bowled
for
like 9 overs. He's
under
played
eights
the
and
same
over,
overs.
which are very good, very very good. And he's been a large part of why he's in the side is that option as a sixth bowler. Is if somebody does have an off day. You can't understate his importance in this 11, in that ability to bowl 1 or 2 overs if needed. I'd feel a little bit uncomfortable if I was saying to him, we're going to bowl all 4. I'm not saying he couldn't do it. I'd feel a little bit uncomfortable if that was the case.
And I think that's always been my thing with Aiden. It's one of those. It's just I'm just trying to think what the selectors and Boucher could go with after yesterday, and the theme for me for this podcast. If there's anything you want to take out of this podcast as a South African fan, don't get carried away. Let's not get carried away. Tim and I are excited, yes, but let's not get carried away, and especially in team selection. My only thing was I looked at India. India went with the extra batter, right? They brought in Deepak Hooda, and they decided to ride with their 5. They didn't have a 6th bowling option. Or let's say this, their 6th bowling option would have been a spin option, and that wouldn't have worked for the South African, worked against the South Africans. You found it very hard from a bowling perspective, I think both sides. Because for me, yesterday's game, when we looked at the bowling, so India and South Africa's bowling, it was different styles. Beautiful exhibition of fast bowling. You've got the hammer it down the hard length and extract the extra bounce South Africans who bowled really well. Wayne Parnell at the front, Tim, has just been sensational. And then you've got the let's swing it around corners. Let's show you how skillful we are. Indian side, Ashdeep, Shami, Bhuvi were unplayable. Guys, the fact that Timber scored 10 runs in the face of that bowling, it says that we're on the right track going forward. That's how I got to Timber's thing. That's how I characterized Timber's thing. I was like, 10 or 15. Yes, dude. I'd be freaking out myself too. That ball, the South Africans, the Quinny, Riley, and Timber, and to a certain extent Aiden, but he figured it out quite quickly, did not know where the ball was swinging. They couldn't tell out of the hand whether it was going in or out. How do you bat in such conditions? And that's what India present in this World Cup. Playing at night with a white ball where you can't even see, oh, that's scuffed, that's not scuffed, that's discolored, looks heavy. There's no tell with that Indian. And it was so beautiful because you got different styles, and both teams their bowlers gave themselves a chance. And it just came down to a selection thing where one team went with one extra batter and took one less bowler out, and they found themselves in a little bit of trouble. And they couldn't hide. It was the first time ever that India needed to hide Ashwin, and they couldn't hide him. And on top of that, they have an all-rounder who's more of a batter, who's more like an Aiden Markram, actually. Hardik Pandya shouldn't bowl 4 overs in a match, but he had to yesterday. And that, for me, is what changed the game. And to me, those are the 2 best bowling sides in the world. You can argue about batting, but for me, that's 1 and 2. You can pick whatever, but that's 1 and 2. And the only difference is one team went a little bit more conservative because they thought they needed extra runs. And another team was like, well, these are the horses we're playing with. We're dying with 6 batters. And as a South African fan, this is the other side of picking the extra batter. You won't get punished. If this was in India, you wouldn't get punished for that. But because you're in Australia, because you play most of your games in South Africa, this is why Mark and the selectors have always gone for that 6-5 split because of that. And it kind of speaks to, as you say, to the importance of Aiden. But what did you make of India's bowling? Or both bowling?
Okay, well, I will start with India. I thought they were absolutely superb. And when I was on commentary throughout the game, and after the power play, I thought, okay, well, that's bad. We've lost 2 wickets. We've lost the 2 most important wickets in the 11 at the moment. But the second second-rate bowlers will come
They're
on,
coming in.
and they didn't. The second-rate bowlers caused us all sorts of problems. I kept thinking, well, once Bhuvi comes off, once Arshdeep comes off, the swing will stop and it'll become easier to bat on, and it didn't. It took so long for that to happen. It only took until about the 12th over. The last 8 overs where I thought, you know what, we can win. We can actually win from here if we calm heads, just back to the end, make sure these guys are there at the end. We've got a chance. I thought the bowling was incredible, absolutely incredible.
You know how ballsy it was for India to keep with their strategy of we're going to swing it after having been bowled out for, restricted to 130 with guys nailing it on a harder length and bowling short balls. I was sitting there going, wow. I was in awe of the fact that these guys decided, no, we're going to pitch it up. We're going to let the ball do its thing. And I'm like, you know,
it was like a different pitch. It's like a different pitch, like playing on a different surface.
Like, if you're a young bowler or if you just love fun, just go watch the highlight, watch the full match. Because for me, the bowling, forget about the batting. Like guys did really well. Like Surya Kumar Yadav did well, Aiden Markram, David Miller. Oh yes, but it's just that exhibition. Because from a South African perspective, Tim, it was just we're at Centurion now. It's extra bounce. We're gonna get them, and we got them. We got catches that slipped, who were standing like 20 meters from the boundary. Kagiso's catch off of Lungi on the boundary at square leg, unbelievable. Diving forward out of those lights, because those lights are lower than it's a soccer stadium, right? Essentially, so the lights are very low; they're not high. And so the ball so when the ball goes up, it pierces the lights. But when it comes back, it pierces the lights back again. Whereas in a traditional or in a traditional cricket stadium, it just goes up and down and it doesn't necessarily pass the lights. But if it does pass the lights, it passes at a higher point. So you have a longer time to catch. Kagiso's little catch there off of Lungi was amazing. Amazing. And to a certain extent, I was worried that South Africa would sit on that short ball for too long. But Parnell just shows that my only problem with Parnell is that he looks like he can't hold a bat. That's my only issue. Like in those final overs, I'm like, dude, we've watched you bat before. What are you doing? Just get to the other end. But maybe it was the pressure and everything else. But yeah. But his bowling him as an opening bowler has been great. KG as an opening and a death bowler, they've been great together. And it's been a nice little partnership. And then you unleash. Let me say this. You unleash Hal. So India thought that we're past KG and Anna, KG and Wayne. We haven't lost wickets. And then Lungi comes in. And guys, I get Lungi can't bowl to 150. He can get to about a 140 at max. But the disrespect needs to stop. Yesterday we all watched on the same cricket pitch with Kagiso, with Wayne, with Anrich, that this man, Lungi Ngiti, is the guy. He is your guy. He should be the first bowler on the team sheet. There's no fighting it anymore. There's nothing, like, I don't understand why we're debating this. I really don't get it. Even against anybody else who's sitting on the bench. Like, guys, this guy, he went and he showed you 4 wickets. And it's not like Anrich wasn't bowling on the other end. He was. So he had a chance to take wickets too. But Lungi was the guy. Lungi is the guy. I do not get it. I do not get the disrespect this guy gets, the selectors. I don't know what cricket they're watching, because after that, there's no way I'm dropping Lungi. I can drop Anrich, but I'm not dropping Lungi. There's no way.
Lungi is the best T20 bowler we have. And he has been for 2 years.
Is he not the best T20 bowler in the world?
You can make an argument for that. But I think at different times, he maybe, partly because of injuries, he hasn't been. So, a couple of years ago, I would have said Bolt. Bolt was miles ahead of everybody. Miles. I'm not so sure now, but he was streets ahead. One of the best, easily in the top the top three, easy, top three. But easily South Africa's. If I'm picking a bowling squad, first name on the team sheet. If he's fit, he's the first name. There is no debate. His average this year is 15. His strike rate is 10. Leading into this match was 10. That's better than Rabada. That's better than Anna. That's better than Wayne. And considerably better than those guys. Not that they're bad. Lungi is the guy. He is the T20 bowler you go to. He is
and
the
you
guy.
don't even need to open with it. That's the great thing about it.
No. The thing what makes him so good, any passage. You can open with him, outside the power play, at the death. All three. He has the ability to do all three. I don't think all of those bowlers are necessarily as strong as all three of those facets. Some of them, they have weaknesses at different times of the innings. Lungi is top notch. Parnell, I'm so happy Parnell has started to prove to people this is why I wanted him in the squad. This is why I wanted him in the 11. This is why. The experience of having played so much T20 cricket, high intense T20 cricket all around the world, is coming through. His skills, his changes in pace, his accuracy, his wicket-to-wicket bowling is such a joy, just such a joy to see. And Anna yesterday as well, fantastic. It's one thing having that pace. That's one thing. It's a great thing to have. But to have that accuracy against that Indian batting lineup, to bowl that large to a large extent, so accurately, giving minimal width. There were a couple of balls that were too wide that went for boundaries, but by and large, 90% of what he bowled was absolutely on the money. It was such a joy to see. Just quickly on Parnell's batting. I don't know if you saw A.P. de Villiers' watch along during the game. He did a watch along for the game, and it was coming to the nitty gritty of the game, and he was getting sort of intense and he was getting worried, and Parnell got in, and Parnell played. He needed singles. He needed singles when Parnell came in.
Yeah, and he would play like he was fending off his body.
And AB said, "What is that bad angle? What is that? That's I don't know what that is. I don't know what this Parnell used to be able to bat."
Exactly. Like I was comfortable. I was like, "No, guys, it's fine." Like Parnell coming in, like even if Kesh came in, because I understand Kesh understands. Like Kesh has worked on his batting, so I was really comfortable. Even when Stubbs went out, I was like 12 of 12. Oh, no, that's fine. Just give David Miller the strike. That's the prevailing thing.
Yeah, chop and run. Yeah. What's that angle?
That's a nice little segue to the batting. How would you have rated India's batting? Because I think they just were. Look, India's batting on paper looks good, but I don't think they're all on form. I think Kohli's on form, and I think Surya Kumar Yadav is on supreme form. But the rest of them, you're like, they're waiting for their moment. And what Lungi exposed yesterday, and that's the other thing about bouncy pitches. You kind of can get carried away with the bounce and wanting to just helping the ball along the way, or just coming and swinging hard so it can go back over because the grounds are big. And I kind of felt India got stuck in that. And obviously the pressure created by Kagiso and Wayne at the front kind of forced them into try to be aggressive against Lungi, which is the worst thing to do, and Anna, and they got found out. And India never got real momentum as they kept on going on, apart from the fact that we just could not get Surya Kumar Yadav out. Sky just kept on staying throughout the innings, and I'm sitting there going, if this man is still there, 150 is a possibility. Because my number at over 10 was, okay, look, if we can get them to run about 140, that's doable with this, especially on this pitch, because I kind of expected India to come firing with the ball. So I actually didn't think 133 could be parish. I thought 150 was par. But I thought South Africa would have done well to actually restrict them to under 150. That was the number I was working in my head. But Surya Kumar Yadav was like, I'm sitting there going, this guy can, score 20 and over, and that was my thing. But when I looked at obviously, and that was it. How did you see India's batting?
They made a grave error, which I'm glad South Africa, they saw it and they changed it. So when they lost those early wickets, the 2 early wickets, that can happen. That was good bowling. It wasn't great batting, the first KL and the other guy. That wasn't great, but that happens. Sometimes you just have to take it. I think Kohli's shot and Pandya's shot was poor. Both incredible catches from Babada, but I don't think the situation required hitting sixes in that period. They were not bad deliveries. They were good, fast, straight deliveries. There wasn't that width there either on the leg side or the offside. I think those shots said to me, they said, we need to get to 160. I think 140 and you can defend that. I genuinely thought this is not a 160 pitch. This is not a 170 pitch. This is not a pitch where you can just go through your shots. So I think those 2 wickets kind of stuffed them, really. And then they never really they never really got in as such. They never could really get themselves in to a decent total, even though 130 did prove out to be incredibly competitive. So, putting Ayer's innings aside, I think they thought they needed too much. So I think that they didn't manage the innings well enough. I think if Kohli, in particular, if they'd stayed in for another couple of overs, he would have realised, you know what, we don't need an extra 20, 30 runs. We just need to get to 140 plus, and we can be competitive, and we got the bowlers. So I don't think they managed the innings as well as they could have.
From a South African perspective, obviously you look here at 130, you're realizing that you know what you're going to have. And that was the important thing about the toss. India won the toss and chose to bat first. And I was surprised because I've known India to be a chasing side. I've known India to want to know what they're going to get and plan towards it. And so that was a surprise for me. But then when I looked at South Africa, I was like, okay, that's 130. We got into 130 before. It meant that you didn't have to blow the barn door up front. But it was also important to try and be aggressive because after the power play, we were behind them. And it was a struggle. And we had lost 3 wickets in the power play because Timber's wicket fell in the 6th over. Obviously, Riley and Quinny got some supremely good balls. Timber fell at his own sword, and I'll talk about Timber now. For me, I can see he's thinking. He's trying things. And that little ramp shot, it came off the edge of the bat. Had it come off the middle of the bat, that's a 4. So I can see he knows where his scoring areas are. He's starting to discover. It's now trying to get the timing. And this shouldn't be happening at a World Cup. Some people are saying that have been talking to me saying that no, he's possibly still carrying that elbow injury, and which would be I don't want to put that onto CSA or the selectors because that just is a player safety is very important. So you kind of need to, if guys are still injured, don't play them. But for me, I think there was an initial settling down after Arshdeep and Bhuvi and Timber and Markram were just going about their things. And it was that, as we spoke in the preview, this was the type of innings you needed a Timber in. He lost early wickets. He settles everything down and calms everything down. And Aiden Markram gets to do his business and everyone else gets to do their business. The way I saw yesterday was, outside of Timber was, okay, Timber, small wins, he scored 10 runs, fine. We're moving forward. He's thinking. He's starting to see where he can score in Australia. And so I'm happy about that. He'll figure it out as we go along. Reza's not coming back, guys, unfortunately, unless if Timber's out. But what I saw yesterday, remember I spoke about it in the previous game. I was like, look, it will be Quinny and Riley in one game. The next game will be Aiden and David and Tristan. This was the Aiden and David game. The two failed, the other two succeeded. And that's what this team is. There's no team in world cricket right now, possibly New Zealand, that has 4 or 5 batters on form. We've got 5. And even if you think Timber's holding us back, we've got 5 informed batters that can win us games. No team has that. And if you have that, you should be winning games. You should be able to chase down any target, regardless, right? And so for me, that's where I'm at. And that's what we saw yesterday. That, oh, no, those guys who scored runs in the last game, they got out early. But these guys are red hot. The only person was Tristan Stubbs. And I think he came at a time where it was kind of weird. But we needed him to attack. He tried to attack. He got out. So that for me was the thing. But really, truly happy with Aiden. Unbelievable from David Miller. He's like aging like fine wine. We needed 90 of the final 10. I was never worried. I just knew we needed to get to under 50 in the final 5 overs, which means we had to go for 10 and over from over 11 up until 15 to get us there. And enter R. Ashwin. R. Ashwin comes in and we had to decide, because I remember I sent it to one of my WhatsApp groups. I was like, no, we just need to get to under 50 by over 16, and then we'll figure it out from there. And then we got to under 50 by the start of the 15th over, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Then you need 10 and over from here on out. Sure, fine. Then it's in our court. And I wasn't even worried. I think if we lost 2 wickets in a row, that would have been an issue. But obviously, Virat dropping Aiden was a gift from the gods, and you need luck like that. You know, South Africa has been at World Cups and they don't get that type of luck.
56 for 4. That would have been 56 for 4.
Yeah. And Aiden, you saw that it was his day, and he went for it. The missed runouts as well. It looked horrible for India in the field, and South Africa looked great in the field. And so I don't read much into this, apart from the fact that this game is supposed to give the guys in Australia confidence that they can beat India. Where do you see this batting effort yesterday, Tim?
Now, I'm very happy with all the guys finding form. T20 cricket, you can be your day, and then 24 hours later, you can be zero. You can be out for nothing. We saw that with Riley. We saw that with Quinton. Everybody is going to have to pitch in. If we want to win this World Cup, everybody in that top 6 is going to have to have a game. They are going to have to contribute. Excuse me. So, the fact that 5 of the 6 are contributing is absolutely vital going forward. The one concern that I have, I don't want to bash Timber, I don't. But that 10 or 15 is the difference between winning and losing a semi-final, potentially. I like the fact that he's being progressive with the last things. I do like that. I do like that he's trying to do something. He's not just dropping the single and running. He's actually trying to be progressive. I do like that, 100%. If he can get whatever he gets, if he can just get run a ball, whatever he gets, I will say that's fine. So if he gets 10 of 10 the next game, that to me is a tick in the box when everybody else goes on that. What I don't want from anybody is, I don't want 10 of 20, 10 of 18.
But that's how we used to play our cricket. It was a catch-up, and yesterday felt like you could have caught up on the back end. It's just that he lost his... And that's the risk of playing that type of cricket, that catch-up cricket, is that you'll be 10 or 15, and you could have been 14 or 15 had you middled that ball over the keeper. So for me, that was like, okay, cool. I kind of see it. He is struggling, and I kind of feel like Bach is trying to give Timber these 5 games to get himself into some sort of reasonable form, because from a captaincy perspective, and you heard that on Aiden's thing, he feels as though Timber's captaincy is what he's bringing to the side, and he's doing it quite well. The question obviously is how many runs is going to cost you.
I'll just come back there. Aiden is not going to say, actually, Timber should be dropped for the next game. He's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. Because if he does, he's not going to be playing the next game himself. You can't have that because then you create unnecessary tensions within the squad. So he's doing it for the team, regardless of whether it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. Just anyone has a go at me. It is the right thing to do. It is a concern that he's not scoring runs, but you back everybody. You want everybody to feel that they're being backed, and that is the best way we're going to go far this tournament.
Okay. Obviously, let's look at how this is going to shape up going forward. I just got the table up. Just had a quick squiz at the table for us to just have a conversation around. Actually, first, let's look at the fixture. So, South Africa have obviously played India in Perth. Now they've got Pakistan in Sydney, so they travel back across the continent of Australia to play Pakistan at 10 a.m. That's going to be an intriguing game because it's a must-win for Pakistan, not so much for South Africa. And obviously, they play the Netherlands a couple of days after. On Sunday in Adelaide, they go down south. So the table looks like this. South Africa first with 5 points. India was second with 4. Bangladesh third with 4 as well. Zimbabwe 3 played, 3 points. Pakistan 3 played, 2 points, and that's the one win. And that win, I think, was against the Netherlands. And then obviously the Netherlands having played 3 and 0 points. So now the situation obviously with the rained out game makes it a little bit tricky for everybody. But here, Tim, if South Africa beat Pakistan on Thursday, effectively they've booked themselves into the quarterfinals, into semifinals. Unless if India win their remaining 2, or India will, unless if India and Bangladesh win their remaining 2 games, but India and Bangladesh play each other. So one of those 2 will effectively finish on 8, but the other's going to finish on 6, and South Africa will be on 7. So effectively, South Africa have 1 foot in the semi-final. It's about winning the group. To win the group, you're going to have to beat Pakistan and the Netherlands. So it's still full, but if you lose to Pakistan, it's not the end of the world. You just have to beat the Netherlands, and if you do, you're in. Because looking at it all, Zimbabwe is the only other team that can finish on 7 points. They still have to play India, and they still have to play the Netherlands, right? So everyone's kind of beating each other here. So where South Africa is right now is in a really good spot. So looking at the fixtures going forward, obviously they played Pakistan in Sydney. It's not going to be as bouncy as before, but there will be some bounce. Shaheen Shah Afridi will be there. Pakistan have a weird situation going on now with their openers. Everyone's all of a sudden not liking Baba and Mohammad Rizwan, which is weird because everyone thinks that they're now similar players, which we always knew. Tim, when you look at South Africa's road to the semis, what do you make of it, and how do you think they'll come up against Pakistan?
I think what is the concern now from a South African point of view is taking the foot off the pedal. South Africans, by nature, as far as the cricket team go, don't have that killer instinct. That is the only concern that I have. Everything else is ticking, the players are ticking, the performances are there. The only issue there is that I have that they might take the foot off the pedal. I think they'll be one of the 2, despite all the permutations there, with all those there, I think they'll be one of the 2. I think that is 90% done. What would have been interesting, and it's not, but what would have been interesting if Zimbabwe beat Bangladesh, and they got incredibly close, and they should have. If I'm honest, the way they performed in the field was really poor. Really poor. If they had performed just a little bit better, they would have won that game, and then it would have been a squeaky bum time. Seriously, they would have been genuine hopefuls for going through to the semi-finals. Being as that may, I'm happy. I just hope that South Africans are keeping the eyes at the prize. Don't take it off.
Don't touch the money. But they are going to win it. Well, I did make the prediction earlier on. I do think this is a championship team in waiting. They just have to get through a whole lot of the mental stuff, which is why, to a certain extent, to me, and this is my own opinion, you can laugh at me, you can do whatever at once, Temba's just there to take the burden off of these players, off of these star performers. He's a star performer in himself. He's going through a bad patch, but he was there to take the burden of captaincy off. Imagine if Aiden was in this situation. Imagine if Devin was in this situation or thingy. If that affected their batting, it would have been detrimental to where this team was going. And so somehow it's working out. And we're winning games with it working out. We're not losing games. It's not like the India series a month before, 3 weeks ago. We're winning games. And so for me, let's look to the positives. Let's look to getting this team going. Let's keep on supporting them. They've done so well so far. Haven't lost a game yet. They have dropped points, but it's about getting that momentum going. And Pakistan is super, super important. Win that game, get yourself into that semi-final, and then figure out who you're going to play on the other end and plan for them. But you can beat anybody. And I hope yesterday's, and that's my hope with the Proteas about yesterday's game. Then now because I'm reading Faf's book, and in 2015 when they beat Sri Lanka, he says that in the dressing room, in the quarterfinal, he says that's when they realized they could win it. I hope last night that was the time this team realized that they actually could win this entire thing. And so for me, that's what it was. Tim, any final words before we go?
No, just that if you want to watch our game, it's on Thursday. Our next game. I'm not sure what time, but it's on Thursday.
10 a.m.
Generally, 10 a.m.
Yes, 10 a.m.
Okay, there we go. Yes, there we go. 10 a.m. South African time. So make sure you watch it. Otherwise, no, I'm all out. That's
we'll be back with a review of the Pakistan game as well. Outside of that, we've got we're going to be doing a preview show of the semi-finals or talking about the CSA T20. We've reached semi-final time. The semi-finals are going to be happening on Wednesday, and then the final is going to be on Friday, I assume. And that's going to be Saturday, yes. And that's going to be the end of the first tournament of the domestic season. We haven't spoken about it because of the World Cup, so we're just going to cram everything in, including someone's 162, because, oh my word. Oh, wow. Oh, my word. Oh, wow. And that's essentially what the commentators were saying. Outside of that, goodbye, good night, and le sale.